Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to dive into 5 tips for you that are all about keeping promises to yourself. So this video is absolutely for you, and you likely clicked on this video if you are someone who finds yourself setting these goals, saying you're gonna do all of these things, and then continuing to not, continuing to fall short, continuing to literally forget that you even set those goals in the first place, and then thinking back and being like, what the heck happened, right? So if that sounds like something you're interested in, keep watching and let's dive right in. So for tip number 1, we are going to set clear and realistic goals. So I know that this might seem obvious, but if you are struggling to actually keep promises to yourself, to actually show up for the goals that you're setting, it might be because you are setting goals that are far too big, too far out of reach, unrealistic. Now, I want it to be really clear. I believe in dreaming big. I believe in setting goals that are gonna push you. I believe in setting goals that can be a little unrealistic, especially to some of those naysayers around you. But for the most part, you can set a goal that's pushing yourself, but still realistic, right? Because here in a second, we're gonna move on to the next step that's gonna help us know how we're going to achieve that. But if you are struggling, it might be because you are setting really outlandish goals that just aren't actually doable or actually possible for you to achieve. So maybe you're setting them with a timeline, which is always good. If you have a timeline, that's gonna give you a better idea of when do I need to accomplish this by. So maybe you're giving yourself a week or a month or a year. Now I will caution you, setting goals for a year can be scary. It can be overwhelming because there's a lot that you can do in the course of a year. I do set yearly vision board type goals, but I always break those down into a 12-week year, monthly goals, weekly goals, and daily goals. So I do have other videos that go into all of that. I have an entire goal setting series. I will link that in the description box below in case you are interested. I literally break it down from the broadest of broad all the way down to the daily planning. So when it comes to that though, I want you to be really cautious when you're setting goals. Don't just set a yearly goal unless you're willing to break it down quarterly, monthly, weekly, and to the day. Because otherwise it's going to be very overwhelming, or you're gonna think, I have so much time to achieve that, I don't need to start working on that yet. And then you won't do anything, okay? That could be a big reason why you aren't achieving the goals that you're setting, and you're getting to the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the quarter and you're like, why am I not making progress? I really do want to achieve these things. So make sure, kind of do some little self-check as we're going through this video today and decide, are my goals actually clear and are they actually realistic? Now again, be okay with pushing yourself. I'm here for pushing yourself, challenging yourself. You know what you're capable of. You also know where you've been slacking. You also know where you've been coming up with excuses. Only you can know that. I can't decide that for you. But if you can be actually honest with yourself, if you can reflect, you will be able to figure out where you have been falling short and potentially why you've been falling short, and not setting clear or realistic goals could be part of that. But honestly, it's probably deeper than that. It's probably deeper. It could be fear. It could be imposter syndrome. It could be that you're just not actually having time to do some of the things that you're setting. So that goes back to that realistic or unrealistic goals. And then if you're not clear on what you're trying to do, you're never going to achieve it. So that moves us into tip number 2. Tip number 2 is creating a plan and breaking it down. So just like I shared in tip number 1, when I set goals, I absolutely do set goals. Even I set long-term goals like 5-year and 10-year goals. Like, where do I want to be? What do I want life to look like in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I don't necessarily create a vision board or anything like that, but in the back of my mind, when I'm setting those yearly goals, I'm thinking, okay, what needs to be accomplished this year so that I can continue working towards it next year, and then the year after that, and the year after that, so that 5 years from now, this is what life can look like, right? So creating a plan and then breaking it down is going to be your best friend when it comes to keeping promises to yourself. Promise you. So my favorite way to do this is with a 12-week year. I will link my 12-week year video down below. It is by far the most popular video I've ever recorded and put out here on YouTube. So definitely check that out. It's based off of a book. So I did not come up with it. It is based off of a book. I just came on here and basically kind of gave you my 5 tips from it, whether you ever read the book or not. But In that book, it helps you break down essentially a quarter of the year, 12 weeks, and it teaches you how to break down goals that you're setting to achieve at the end of those 12 weeks into week-long chunks. So it's a 12-week year. You're accomplishing essentially what could be accomplished in the course of a year in just 12 weeks, but you're breaking that down into weekly chunks. And then I like to take it a step further and break it down daily. So I have an idea of what I need to accomplish this week, but then I sit down with my planner day after day and I decide what has to happen today, what has to happen tomorrow, what has to happen the next day. And that is how I go little by little, one day at a time is my favorite motto, one day at a time to achieve my goals. So I have, though, a very, very clear plan. And then I break that down even further on the little actions that need to be taken so that I can see myself actually achieve those goals, so that I can actually keep the promise to myself that I'm going to achieve that goal because I have exactly the plan in place. Think of it like back in the day before we had just, GPS right there on our phones, when you would have to log onto the internet and you'd have to print out like MapQuest directions, right? It would literally list out step by step of everything you needed to do, every turn you would have to make, how long you would be on a certain highway, all of that. Now our GPSs still do that, but it basically just gives us in real time what we need to do in that moment. But back in the day, MapQuest, you had to print out all of the details so that you knew how to get there. This is the same concept. When it comes to working towards a goal and to keeping the promise to yourself that you're actually going to do what it takes to achieve that goal, you need to be really clear with a plan and you need to break that down. So let's say, I often use this because this is my world of work, but let's say you have a weight loss goal. You want to lose 15 pounds, okay? So you're not going to lose 15 pounds overnight. You're not going to lose 15 pounds this week. You're probably not going to lose 15 pounds this month. So you need to be realistic of what's a good average amount of weight to lose in a week's time, okay? Then you're going to add that up and figure out, okay, let's say 2 pounds a week is what you're going to strive for. So 2 times 7 weeks would put you at 14 pounds if you genuinely lost 2 pounds per week. So 2 times 8 would put you at 16 pounds lost if you were to do that, 2 times 8 weeks. So you would essentially, it would take you 8 weeks, 2 months to lose 15 pounds. That's realistic. That's not putting pressure on yourself right here, right now, this week, thinking I need to lose 15 pounds by Friday. That's unrealistic. That's not going to actually happen. You're going to step on the scale tomorrow and it's probably not going to have changed. You're probably going to go up in weight. Who knows? And then you're going to quit on yourself and you're not going to be keeping any promises to yourself because you set an unrealistic goal. You had unrealistic expectations. Meanwhile, if you make a plan and you break it down into realistic steps, you are so much more clear on what needs to be done. You can focus on those 2 pounds at a time. You can focus on just this week, what needs to happen this week, what needs to happen next week. And then little by little, you are working towards that goal and you are chipping away at that goal. That is how you keep that promise to yourself, is by being so clear, but also by setting those realistic goals. Tip number 3 is holding yourself accountable. So the best way that I can encourage you to do this is find someone that you can trust, someone that believes in you, someone that's not a naysayer, but someone that absolutely is going to be there to support you. Someone that you can check in with and say, hey, I'm working on this today. Hey, I'm doing this today. They may not be doing the same thing as you. They may not actually care about what you're doing. So find someone that genuinely cares about you. If that's a spouse and you have a relationship where you can do that, great. If it's your best friend, great. If it's your mom, if it's your sister, if it's your aunt, if it's your cousin, if it's a coworker, doesn't matter who it is. Find someone though that you can trust, that you know well enough that they're going to hold you accountable and they're not just going to make excuses for you, because we all have been there and we definitely all have those friends that have our back no matter what. No matter what you've done, they will take your side and they will be on your side. You need someone that's going to be like, hey, you said you were going to do this. Where are you at? Right? So that was a huge piece for me, even starting my YouTube channel. I finally told a really good friend of mine and she was like, I want to see a video by the end of this month. Like, what are you doing? And I got a video up. But it took me telling somebody, it took me finding that accountability piece. So if you want to leave comments on my YouTube videos and use that as your accountability piece, I would love that. Someday I would love to have a community, but right now, this is what we have. So find that accountability piece though, and I promise you, it will absolutely make such a difference. Tip number 4 is to stay flexible and then adapt when you need to. So you might set a goal and then life happens. Something may happen really unexpectedly that takes you away from being able to work towards that goal like you thought. Or something may happen where you achieve that goal quicker than you thought. Whatever it is, you have to be willing to be flexible. You might make this beautiful plan. You have it all mapped out week by week. You think of those MapQuest directions and you have everything set and it's beautiful. But then life happens. You have to be flexible. I see this nearly every single quarter with my 12-week year. I make a beautiful plan. I say I'm going to do this in week 1, I'm going to do this in week 2, I'm going to do this in week 3, all the way through week 12. But there are times, especially this quarter is a prime example of that. We lost my sweet dog Cub and it took me a couple of days where I did nothing work-wise. I was grieving. I needed a moment. So I didn't get a bunch of things done during that week of my 12-week year. I've just had to make up time since then. And that's okay. I am okay with being flexible. I needed that time, and quite frankly, I'm so incredibly thankful that I have a schedule that allows me to be flexible and to be able to adapt. It took a lot of mindset work because I used to be the person that was very all or nothing, like it has to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, why even bother? That is not how I think about things anymore, and I'm so thankful that I don't, because that's a terrible mindset. It got me nowhere, and it made me really negative, like all of the time. So now I know I'm gonna do my best. I focus on one day at a time. What can I do today? I don't get overwhelmed by week-long tasks, by month-long tasks, by quarter-long tasks. I focus on what can be done today, and I shift, and I'm flexible, and I adapt when is necessary. And then the final tip number 5, is to celebrate your success. I think this is one of the most underrated tips when it comes to goal setting. We are so head down, focused on the light at the end of the tunnel, reaching that success point, whatever that marker is that we've set for ourselves. The example I used earlier, you're so set on losing 15 pounds, but you need to celebrate 2 pounds lost along the way, and then 3 pounds lost, and then 4 pounds lost, and then 5 pounds lost. And celebrating can be anything. It can be, buying a new outfit. It can be reading your favorite book, watching your favorite show, giving yourself an extra little self-care night. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's expensive. You don't have to go out and buy something. It could literally just be you celebrating yourself, taking a moment to just pause and be proud of yourself. Like, I don't know where or why we don't do this more or why this isn't encouraged more, but I swear if we would celebrate our successes, the little milestones that we achieve along the way to those bigger goals, we would be so much more apt to actually achieve them. We would be so much more apt to actually keep those promises to ourselves. Because guess what? It feels good when you're celebrated. It feels good when you're happy, and you're happy when you're celebrating. So if you can celebrate 2 pounds lost, then you're gonna be more excited to celebrate 4 pounds lost. And then you're gonna be more excited to celebrate 6 pounds lost, right? You're gonna celebrate little by little instead of belittling yourself and being like, well, it's only 2 pounds. Well, how do you think you get to 15 pounds? You have to lose 2 pounds before you can lose 15 pounds. You have to lose 5 pounds before you can lose 15 pounds, right? Just like when you're going, using the MapQuest example from earlier, you have to make this turn and this turn and this turn before you're ever gonna cross the state line, before you're ever gonna make it to the beach, right? Like, the beach isn't next door. You have directions that are gonna help you get there, but you have to make these little turns along the way. Maybe you have a halfway point where you're like, if we can get here by halfway, we are doing so good on time. Let's stop, let's have a nice meal, and we can carry on after that, right? Celebrate those little wins along the way, because you already have clear goals. You already have a clear plan in place. You have accountability. You are so ready to go. Now you need to celebrate little by little along the way. And I promise you, keeping those promises to yourself, continuing to show up, continuing to do what you know needs to be done is going to come so much easier, because you're gonna have such a better mindset about it. You're gonna be so much happier, so much more proud of yourself, and just so much more excited to actually do the things. So, those are my 5 tips for you. I hope that those are helpful. I hope that they kind of, sparked a little light bulb in your mind of, hey, I absolutely can do that, and I haven't been doing that. And those are some good tips, and I'm absolutely gonna adopt them right here and now. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe. We do all kinds of chats like this on here, and I love getting to share. Love all the support from you guys, and just love you so much. So we'll see you in the next video.